After practice for tomorrow's Canadian Grand Prix, Niki Lauda, twice a world motor racing champion, announced to an astonished motor racing world that he was retiring from the sport. Here's Murray Walker.
Well, to say that the motor racing world's stunned by Niki Lauda's totally unexpected retirement is a masterpiece of understatement, because he's been at the top for 5 years, and all the recent talk's been about who he'd be with next year to stay there. But it's typical of the man, because Niki's serious, curt, antisocial, and frighteningly intense in his application to his chosen life. But it's typical of him too that after a conventional and successful start in motor racing, he coolly borrowed £30,000 to buy his way into Formula One. In 1974, he achieved the Grand Prix driver's ultimate goal, a place in the Ferrari team, a place which he more than justified in 1975 when early in the season he won here at Monaco, and then went on to achieve 4 more victories and become world champion, thanks largely to his utterly dedicated and ruthless pursuit of perfection through day after day and mile after mile of developing the new Ferrari at the company's Fiorano test track, because for the demanding Lauda, only the very best will do. But 1976 was Lauda's sweet and very sour year of success and agony that none of us will ever forget. For after 5 magnificent wins in the Ferrari, and with the World Championship virtually assured again, he had his horrific fiery crash in the German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, a circuit he was very much against. In hospital, he was fully expected to die, but his fight for survival was nothing less than you'd expected of him.
The first thing I remember was the helicopter, which just started his engine, and I asked where are we going and how long it takes. And the guy said 45 minutes to the next hospital. That's what I remember. And from then on, everything was working well again. When I came to the hospital, you know, you feel like kind of you feel like you're very tired, and you would like to go and sleep. But you know, it's not just going sleeping; it's something else. And then you just fight with the brain. You hear noises and you hear voices, and you just try to listen what they're saying, and you try to keep your brain working and to get the body ready to fight against the illness. And I think this was very good that I did that, because in that way I survived.
You say it wasn't sleeping, it was something else. You mean that you thought perhaps you were dying, did you?
No, you know that. You know, you can feel that now everything is going wrong, you know. You're getting weak and you feel that you can't do anything.
What was the thing that made you fight against that? What went on in your mind that said, I've got to fight against this?
Well, when that feeling came, you get a big fright. You know, you're really worried and frightened that you're going to die. And then that means you start everything possible to keep you going. And you can't start your body because the body doesn't react. You only can start the brain. That means you hear voices, you ask why is, you know, for example, names. Why is he here and why is he not here, you know, and things just to keep the brain working, and when the brain works, the body starts to work sooner or later.
A priest came to see you, didn't he? Do you remember that?
Yes, one of the nurses asked me if I want a priest, and I said, yes, why not? Because, you know, I was worried about everything, so it might be a good idea. I'm Roman Catholic. So the priest came, and I expected him that he will speak with me and tell me some, you know, that I should try hard to survive and all that. Instead, he didn't say anything. He just put a little cross on my shoulder and left again.
So, shrugging off the last rites, Lauda was unbelievably back 4 races later, and but for controversially retiring from the Japanese Grand Prix, would almost certainly have been world champion for the 2nd year in succession. 1977 saw Lauda fully recovered and right at the top again. World champion in 1975, 2nd in 1976. He went on as though his terrible accident had never even happened. Won 3 more Grand Prix and became world champion yet again for the 2nd time in 3 years. He left for a new challenge and yet more testing. More testing to perfect an entirely new car, a car with which he appeared for the first time when he received BBC TV's prestigious Overseas Award at the end of the year. A momentous year, and it was an award with which he was clearly delighted. Now, Now, Niki's one of the finest development drivers in the business, and with his new team, he worked ceaselessly to hone the Brabham Alpha to a state of winning perfection. He drove as well as he's ever driven, despite crashing in Austria, tried as hard as he's ever tried, and he did well, but not as well as he had done in the Ferrari team. So then, into 1979. A crash in Ferrari, a new year ahead of him, with yet another new car, the Brabham Alpha V12. But it's been Niki's worst year ever, with only 2 finishes in 14 Grand Prix. Although, ironically, he won what was to be his last race, the non-championship event at Imola 2 weeks ago. But for Grand Prix after Grand Prix, Niki Lauda has suffered this year the unaccustomed situation of unreliability. Unreliability he never knew at Ferrari. So, after a year of comparative disaster, even his Imola win clearly wasn't enough to motivate him, as Jackie Stewart discovered when he asked Niki if he'd had any after effects from his 1976 accident, which hurt him so very badly.
Not at all, but I think you should know, because you've been very long in motor racing. As long as you are in motor racing, it's more boring it is in one way, because you know all the people, everything is the same all the time. And it needs special motivation. You know, like if you start when you're 25 years old or 22 years old, you start motor racing. The motivation is there because you want to get in, you want to know everything, you want to win and all that. So if you know everything, you have won a lot of races. You always need new motivations to bring the push-up you need to be successful. And my new motivation is that new Brabham Ford car now, which I think has the same engine as all the other people. I don't think I will have a disadvantage. And if we do work hard and make the car quick, I think we can be successful. And this is more important to me now than it was in the past. So I want the people around me to help me and motivate me to give all the things I always have given. But it's more difficult to give now because, you know, you're...
That's why I retired. Does that mean that Niki Lauda isn't so far away from going into other facets of his life if this didn't perform to his satisfaction?
I think it's even more complicated in that respect because, as you know, you have to drive racing cars with your heart and your head for it. The main thing is the heart. You have to get into these cars and you have to be excited now to start the practice tomorrow here in Montreal, you know, to really get moving. So if you get in the car all miserable and you say, oh shit, I have to drive again, or it won't work. And I sometimes feel a little bit of not all that power, because especially the pros I had. I only finished 2 races this year. So, you know, it's all not funny anymore. So it really does get boring. And as long as the heart and the head is there, it is still. But I can feel one day it won't be anymore. And then I will retire overnight because, as you know, there's no point struggling along